Good morning, all you beautiful trans people in my phone. Welcome to Trans in the Am. I'm your host, Aaron Green. Today we are going to do Friendly Friday, and today I'll have with me Dahlia. I messed up the recording a little bit here, so I do apologize about that. But let's just go ahead and smoothly transition over to the video where we are doing our interview. Let's do a smooth transition. A smooth transition.
You okay?
I'm really not. Okay.
Are you, would you like to talk about it?
Uh, I haven't been recording this whole time.
It happens. I mean, it's like ethics when it comes to medicine is like such a difficult thing. It's kind of like one of the questions that we got asked was if a Marine tells you to kill him, right? What do you do? So, one person brought up a good point that if they are like beyond dismembered, like say they had a Baghdad battery blow up right next to them, like their hips blown off, their legs blown off, their insides or their outsides. What do you do? Like in that situation, like there's very little chance of recovering them, like helping them stay alive. And it's like, Jesus, I would not want to be an actual doctor because you would have even more complex. Like that's a pretty hard question, like to answer. With being a regular doctor, you have even more complex issues of like people's religion. I mean, that's like the biggest one. Like if someone is in a medical emergency or like the one episode of Scrubs where like I think it was like a pedophile or something and they ignored him until he died. It's like ah, oh, I don't know if I couldn't do that. I couldn't I don't know if I could provide service to someone like that, you know?
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to separate that. I can see that. But I don't know. It definitely does get murky, and that's an ethical question, a dilemma that I'm thankful I don't have to struggle with. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm thankful
I'm
that's not part of
glad.
my daily life. Yeah, I probably act a little bit more unethically than I should at work. Uh, I just mean that I'm sometimes a little bit more rude than maybe I need to be, but I think I can only be expected to explain so many times to somebody what a power cable is. I can't,
Yeah.
or how to connect to Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I had it's like because I don't really do like we don't do a whole lot of development for cryptological devices.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of like an IT, like I'm technically a sysadmin. Um, Today I had a user who somehow their ticket got all the way to me, and they were having an issue with I think it was like Outlook or something, right? Like um, they're like, well, it's asking me for my password and stuff like that. I was like, okay, do you want me to remote in or something? Like, what's the actual issue here? And so I remote in and come to find out they were opening up like Internet Explorer and then logging into Outlook instead of like using the app. And it's like, well, duh, it's gonna ask you to log in.
Yeah.
What do you log in to like your bank account on your like every day, or is it like just set and like anytime you access your computer, your bank account's open? Like, yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
And we are government contractors specifically for the Department of Defense, and it's like we can't have our emails just out in the open. The last time someone did that, there was a lot of bad things that happened.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Well, I mean, it just kind of makes sense there. But yeah, I don't have to tell you. You already know. there are so many people that are just completely inept when it comes to technology. They own like an iPhone and an iPad, and they've got the ear pods and shit, and they're all decked. They got their iTV, their Apple TV or whatever, and it's all fucking Apple. And you ask them how to connect to Wi-Fi, and they're like, "Sorry, Chief, I don't know. I don't know what
Yeah.
you're talking about. My husband does all that, or my wife does all that. I don't want to deal with that." I'm like,
It's
you spent more money than you needed to on these products, and you're not even going to learn how to use them. And I know this is not the
yeah.
first time somebody's told you this. I know this is not the first time somebody's asked you to connect to Wi-Fi. This is not the first time you've connected to a Wi-Fi network. By the time you get to me, it is not the first time. Why have you not retained this knowledge? People stop retaining stuff after like high school. 99% of people just like nothing. There's nothing there.
I legitimately think that after the age of 50, people just stop allowing new knowledge. I mean, it would make sense why there's such an like a swap in age. Like younger people are always more liberal and a lot more progressive, whereas older people are a lot more conservative. I don't think it's necessarily with how they grew up and holding on to old ideals. I think it's legitimately they just refuse to accept new ideas.
Yeah.
Um, because like say like back in the day, like trans people weren't necessarily vilified. In fact, we were kind of unknown. Um, like there was like, the few news articles about like, oh, trans GI becomes gorgeous blonde or something like that, or GI becomes gorgeous blonde. And it was kind of like oh, this is an oddity, but fundamentally not thought about. And then
Right.
now that we are out in the open, um, people have to think about us and they don't want to, um, which I think is one of like the biggest things and one of the most difficult things is people have to come to terms with and understand what's going on. They just
Mm-hmm.
don't want to.
Yeah. I agree. Well, and I was gay in the 90s, okay? Or in the early aughts or whatever, when it was popular to go to high school and be like, "You're so gay, you gaylord, you queer mo, all this stuff." You know, I've been
Yeah,
around long enough to know that gay has been used as an insult. You ask some Zoomers today, they'd be like, "What? That's not an insult. Are you kidding me? You're just talking about a gay guy or a gay girl or a
yeah,
gay person. Yeah, you're just talking about somebody who's gay. That's it." But
yeah.
no, no, it's got a much deeper history than that. And like, I don't know. I saw this discourse about um, whether people should call themselves queer or not, and whether that was a tool that kind of like a wedge that TERFs use to drive between trans folk and queer folk, and then other gay or lesbians or bisexuals and stuff like that specifically. Um, I don't
I think
know.
the easiest way to bridge that gap is just to like I've noticed that like with like a lot of my gay friends who are well, they were transphobic. Now they're really not. It's usually like they'll just say something that's a little across the line, then you just talk to them. And but like a lot of I grew up in Michigan, which is like essentially like the Bible Belt of the North,
Mm-hmm.
and like I essentially was like like hey, I see your pain. I see you're hurt by this, but like 5 years ago we were calling each other the F slur. Why is queer now a bad word? Like why is it so bad? Well, I don't dye my hair, blah blah blah. It's like, well, okay, do you want to say LGBT every single time you want to talk about our entire community? Or would you rather just say, yeah, the queer community? A, it's easier. B, we're taking the power away from the word. Like the
Yeah.
word doesn't we're not allowing them to like if someone calls you queer, you just go, "Yeah, I'm part of the
Yeah.
queer community, you dumbass." Like
Yeah.
"Oh, are
Exactly.
we recording?" I don't wanna, like, be saying
No.
too many harsh words.
Yeah. No, you're fine. I have a bit of editing to do with this one. That's my own doing, not any of yours. So no fault there. But yeah, I'll do some cutting and editing and stuff like that. We'll make it pretty, so it'll be fine.
Absolutely.
But
But
yeah, don't worry about cursing or anything like that. This is Friendly Friday. So
what?
all of it's friendly and it's Friday. So yeah.
Oh, thank God it's Friday.
Thank God it's Friday. It's definitely Friday today. Right
Yeah,
now,
I
the day
mean,
that it is Friday. Somewhere.
it, I'm claiming it to be Friday. If I just will it, it will be.
It will be. It is. As so mote it be.
It's,
So mote it be.
I think that's Descartes.
Is it?
I mean, I guess technically you could say the let it will, let it be is Descartes because the idea of like what you perceive and what you consider is what is real. The thing I think therefore I am is essentially like
Right.
you can't prove that anything's real, so anything you perceive is real. Um, because as far as your understanding of your surroundings is it could be falsified, but because you live in that reality and all your decisions are made within that reality, you can't say that it's not real. Like,
This is
yeah,
philosophical hour Friday. Philosophical
yeah.
Friday. Let's.
This is my usual like get really high
I
and
love it. Let's
um
fucking do it. Let's get.
yeah, yeah, it's just I don't know, it's fun to think about those things. It's kind of like if like let's say like evolution's bunk and like we're preset as we are and stuff like um like the whole transhumanist ideas, like that's my favorite thing to think about. Like from like an immediate observation, it's like, oh, I get to be a cool cyborg. Awesome. I can have a Gatling gun for a leg or something, or a air fryer for a hand. Like I would love an air fryer for a hand. That would be magical. Just but like when it gets down to it, it's um like should we progress ourselves? Like anti-transhumanism is like, well, we shouldn't change ourselves outside of what we currently are, like unless it's natural, because um the more we do, the worse we could do, like someone could have an air fryer for a hand, and that could be a road hazard. Eating chicken tendies while driving is not safe. Um
Hey, wait a
but
minute. Hang on. Point of order. Hang on. Wait a second. As someone who was a delivery driver for like 12 years and had to eat in her car a lot, eating chicken tendies and driving is totally fine, okay? No,
when I
it's
was
probably a road hazard, yeah.
yeah. When I was 19, me and my brothers used to do drift competitions and stuff like that. And we did one where we passed a Big Mac um, between each other's cars. So like the idea of it is we had a cameraman sitting in the passenger seat of my car,
Uh-huh.
and my brother had a passenger seat in his car. So that we would essentially have this chain of getting close enough to each other while we're drifting that we were able to pass a burger between us, because you get graded on your style, like how close you are to the apex, the borders, stuff like that. But like doing stuff like that, that's kind of crazy. Like a lot of racers will hold hands while racing if they have one person with right hand drive. Um, anyways, I realize I'm not that coordinated anymore, because the other day I was trying to eat a double, I think it was like just cheeseburger for McDonald's because I was on the go. And oh, oh, that was not easy. I mean, it's also I was on I-25 and there's always constant brake checking and that stuff, but
Right.
yeah, it was not exactly easy.
Oh, no. Did you drop it?
Yeah. Oh, no, I did not drop it and I did not crash, which is a plus, but I did swerve. So I have like a big Audi wagon and I've been doing mods to it, so it's a lot louder. Um, like when I let off the gas, I have an atmospheric blow off
Mm-hmm.
that is obnoxiously loud.
Ah.
Um, so I was swerving a little bit, not paying attention, and a cop was like hiding behind a barricade, and I let go of my gas right then and there, and just as loudly as possible because I was really high on the RPM band, just like just right past him, and he had his window open. I was like, oh, oh no, I'm pretty sure atmospheric blow-offs are illegal in this state, so hopefully maybe the cop doesn't know what it is, thinks I have a weird space car or something, maybe. And
Look at this bitch
I
with this weird space car.
yeah, because I have a really weird blow off valve that just makes it sounds like someone screaming skidoo like at the top of their lungs. Um, because it was like the one that could hold the highest amount of pressure. So I was like, I'll just put it on. And yeah, it was it was an interesting I'm also one of those people that I get very paranoid around cops just because when I was way younger, um, you know, like my whole being homeless and being a child prostitute, um, cops are not the greatest people. And so, like I get pretty paranoid around cops. So I was like constantly checking my mirror, and I have one of those Audis that has a really dumb like auto dim mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
So like it'll automatically dim if there's a bright light behind me. So I would like be able to see the car behind me, and then I would look away for 30 seconds and it would dim because it was dark out, and then I couldn't see them because they were on my ass. So it was like uh not
Goodness.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. My brother and I actually got harassed a lot by police when we were younger. Just for walking around. They were fucking bored, I guess. But we grew up in a town that was like 6,000 population, 8,000. I told you I get my sixes and my eights mixed up. Um, it's one of those. Either there's
Yeah.
2,000 more people or 2,000 fewer people. Whatever
It,
it is. Give or take
listen, I
2,000
grew up
people. What is it? It's a rounding error, basically. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, they would just like we would just be like, let's go walk to the 24-hour convenience store that's less than half a mile away. We got a straight shot to it from our house. Why not? It's a weekend, it's summer or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's go get some Cheetos. So we would go walk and try to get some Cheetos. And sure the fucking enough, there'd be some fucking cop going down the street. And then 5 seconds later, and he fucking makes a U-turn and flashes his fucking lights. It's always some fucking asshole. And then one time he pointed to my brother and he was like, "Son, why are your pants wet? You've been getting into stuff that you're not supposed to be getting into." And we're like, "Sir, it rained." And he's walking in the grass. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
Like,
That was it. That was the whole fucking. He just fucking left after that, and he's left us alone. So, but that happened to us like almost every single time we went out. So, like, oh my god, they're just like, they want something to fucking do. If there's nothing to fucking do, they want any excuse to fucking harass people. It's fucking sad.
yeah.
You can't
And the
count on
worst thing
them to
about it is
be
like
there when you need them. What's the fucking point? What's the fucking point? To generate money for the state? Why don't you just increase taxes?
yeah.
Why don't you just increase
Yeah.
fuck the police and just increase taxes if that's what you want?
Yeah, or just like especially with like cops and stuff like that, like literally if they just redistributed the budget for all the cops, like
Yeah.
I grew up also in a very small city in Michigan.
Mhm.
And so like my graduating class was like 4 plus me. So like I don't even know how many people were in the city. And we had like a police station that had I think we had like 6 cruisers and like 12 cops total. So like we only had like maybe a couple thousand people in our city, like nothing. And they would harass, like there was one that would like sit at the park and harass anyone that went near it with a skateboard, which was dumb because no one went to the park
Hmm.
like at all. Like it was a trashy little like swing set and slide, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then there was like a cop that would sit outside the high school, and then I don't know what they were waiting for, but like most of the kids in our town would like we there was like this one gas station near us where back when Four Locos were energy drinks too, the old people that worked the cash registers we could convince to sell us Four Locos because tiny town they don't
Yeah.
have like the nice um cash registers that like will automatically ask for ID.
Mm-hmm.
So we just go get Four Locos, go to the woods, and go get smashed. And yeah, the cops would just like they would never be there for anything. It's kind of like the people that are
Yeah.
like I don't necessarily agree with like the whole fully defund the police in like a very literal sense, but I completely understand like we should probably reduce our funds. Like why is it that, like why is it that my hometown had like, 6 cruisers when there were really only needed like two?
Yeah.
Um, stuff like that. Redistribute that wealth to a bigger city, or even just to a smaller township, something like that. But like they always say, like, oh, well, if someone breaks into your house, who are you gonna call? It's like, well, I'm not gonna call the police because they're gonna show up and find my dead body. I'm going to try my best to escape. If I cannot retreat, um, I will be forced to use self-defense. And at that point, I can only hope for the best that I get him in the hip or something like that, and or not even that. If I'm lucky, it's just warning shot. You know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I'm not gonna call the police. Like I'll call them afterwards. But at that point, why wouldn't I just call like the actual police station itself where they have detectives? Like every bigger city or like for small cities like that, calling the police is pointless because they will literally just call like I lived in Beaverton. Um they would just call Gladwin's county sheriff and they would send a detective out to go like if it was a robbery or something, right? Right? Like they don't use their own police because they just don't have enough people. And they're not
Yeah.
skilled enough because they don't see any crime. Like I think the worst they ever see is an Amish buggy that smashed into a mailbox, if that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's something to be said about that, and I agree. Um, I think the whole defund the police thing is just a failure of messaging. I think it's
Yeah,
people talking past each other and not willing to engage. Um,
absolutely.
just like all the rest of the fucking Twitter discourse. There's fucking shit going on today where fucking
What was the discourse for today?
it's not even worth talk. AOC had a vote on the Iron Dome and whether to fund it or not. The bill passed
Okay.
by a margin of over 400. It was like 420 to like 9. That was it. That was the bill. Okay, it passed.
Yeah.
People are upset because AOC originally said she was going to vote no and indicated she was voting no, and then at the last second changed her vote to present rather than no. And so now people are mad and are saying that she voted for an apartheid state and funding for an apartheid state.
Yeah. I feel like that's like such a uh like I mean the issue of like the Iron Dome existence and
Yeah.
funding for the Iron Dome like um like that's a whole debate, like that you would have to get into a lot of geopolitics and stuff like that. And whether or not, like is the funding worth it, but her just voting to it or abstaining from a vote is like, what's the argument there? Like, why? I mean, I think actually, who Big Joel did a really good video about why Twitter discourse is just the worst. And it was about Shoe on Head and
Yeah.
how she's like, yeah, like that video was wonderful. Like it really shows like a lot of my issues and why like whenever there's like Twitter discourse, what I like to do is I try my hardest to drag people on screen to not necessarily debate me, but talk about it. Because like if we debate, they're going for points, or like they're
Right.
trying to win. I don't want them to be winning. I want them to hear me out. Like um uh say like King Get Pride discourse, you can believe whatever, you want about it. But like I think the base question of asking should leather daddies be allowed? Well, like everyone agrees. Well, okay, then you get into like the philosophical ramifications of is all kink sexual, or is it like like, and then it just gets deeper and deeper, and like having conversations with people, it's a lot easier to slowly get into the water instead of like people are like RGR and that whole debate and how it went from a nothing burger to like a fucking Thunderdome death match, like
Yeah, it was the whole discourse
yeah.
was pointless too. It was like
Yeah,
whatever you think on Twitter is not going to change how events are run, and events are run pretty
really well.
well. Yeah.
Like my my little literally my only complaint for like Pride is like like I've been going for almost a decade, so like I'm not too keen on like the Denver Pride. They had Smirnoff booth or Smirnoff Lane or something, Toyota Lane. Um it's not necessarily about the sponsorships, it's about what the kind of like the history of the sponsorship. So like Toyota, a very big Japanese brand, very big Japanese company. I mean, like one of the automakers that's never had issues. But Japan has a lot of homophobia issues and stuff like that. So
That's right.
why are they sponsoring Pride in Denver when they've never stood up in America and they aren't even standing up in their home country or their headquarters country? Smirnoff, same thing. Like not necessarily the same thing, like it's a little different. It's more like the history of Smirnoff never saying anything and then also kind of um just using us for advertising, like using gay people. Like
Right.
brands I'd love to see, Subaru, having hidden gay messaging in their advertisements. I think
Yeah.
that would be it'd be kind of funny for like a Subaru Forester Lane, um,
Yeah.
something like that. Or AMC, the movie theater chain, having them sponsor something because like uh they had they were like one of the few chains that was willing to air Say My Name or Call Me by Your Name, sorry. Which is a gay romance movie. Like they were like one of the only places that would do that.
Hmm.
Um so it would make more sense to try and field from places like that. But I mean, fundamentally, if it's money that's going towards bettering the community, such as like, I saw that there was like a trans resource booth this year, um, a children's alley where they could get reading material on stuff like how to stay safe for sex, like having discussions about prep and perp,
Hmm.
which you know, my God, like everyone should be having those conversations. Like even if they're straight, they should still have the conversation about I should be going and getting STD checks and stuff like that, or even monogamous people. Like, do you know how many Marines, sailors, airmen, soldiers that I had to treat for mono, and they refused to acknowledge that they had mono because they were like, "Oh, it's an STD," and it's like, well, if someone coughs in your face, you can still get it. If you drink from the same can, you can get it.
Yeah.
You sleep in a bunk room with 80 other guys who are constantly farting, sneezing, and coughing. Like that air is disgusting. Like, of course you have mono. Like, why do you not? How can you not understand that? Like, this is not a big deal. I mean,
Yeah.
even things like gonorrhea. Like, a lot of people like think their dick's gonna fall off or something like that. But like, there should be conversations like it's not the end of the world. Um, Treatment's easy. like just be honest.
Yeah.
Like if you feel like something's odd, go to the doctor. They want you to go there before you have so much syphilis in you that your brain rots through your ears.
Isn't that what happened to Hank Hill's dad?
Uh oh,
I
I do not know. I'm
can't
not up on
remember.
my Hank.
How did Cotton
Oh
Hill
dang.
die?
Now I'm concerned. Like I'll have to look that up later, but
Okay.
yeah, it's like um syphilis is like most people don't like to think about it because they just like ew, stuff's coming out when it's not supposed to be. It's
Yeah.
like, well, don't think of it as like some shameful thing. Just be like, hey, I or even just like one thing that makes me really happy is like the conversation of consent and stuff like that. Like um kids nowadays, like I see stuff on Twitter where um I saw some profile and the person was like, he, him, 17, blah, blah, blah. And they had like this big long thread about like or indirect consent, which is like kind of something that like
Hmm.
generally you don't hear from except for like sex workers tend to talk about indirect consent and stuff like that between each other. And like just how like it's not just oh touching and stuff like that, like um if someone has a conversation that is going a little more sexual, um, you know, the body language behind it and like, you know, is this person actively engaging in this conversation or are they not? Like if they're not, change the subject. Like, like I well, I mean, I deleted my OnlyFans because I was premature, but like I get that all the time where like when I'm talking to like trying to think of who's a like who's a big content creator that I talk to. I guess Gatewood is like the biggest one. I talk to her every so often, but you know, like um I'll talk with people and some people will be like getting a little more sexual and it's like, well, I'm not sexual outside of doing videos really. Like I I read romance novels that are usually like young adult fiction type stuff.
Hmm.
Um like I'm not a sexual person. So I don't want to hear about your act that you want to set up unless it's like actual business oriented. Like,
Right.
you know, it's
There
just
you
like
go.
it's nice to see that, you know.
Right.
Or even like that video of the kid that was talking about that was playing Call of Duty and chastising another kid for being
Yeah.
homophobic. It's like,
Oh, I love that so much. That's so good.
yeah, it makes me so happy that like their kids are able to come to terms. I mean, it's even like trans kids, like, yeah, they have it's tough right now, but like they can at least come out and um like there's a support group out in Boulder that is specifically for trans kids just to at least give them a place to check in and like so they don't feel overwhelmed. And it's like, like back in my day, like the reason I almost got kicked out of school is because my therapist told my foster mother that I was gay, and then she told the school or something like that. I don't really remember how it went.
Yeah.
Um, and I almost got kicked out of school for being gay. I mean, it was a Christian private school, but like still,
Yeah. That
like
sucks.
yeah. But I'm like filled with tons of hope. I think that's like the one thing, especially like this Friday, we should be filling each other up with hopium, maximum
That's
amount of
right.
hopium.
That's right. Maximum hopium. Well, no, I like that attitude, and I really appreciate that a lot of the newer generation, a lot of the younger people that I see on Twitter, for what it's worth, I do, say that they're annoying from time to time, but in general, I do see them like respecting a lot of stuff that I don't see a lot of the older generations respecting, like consent, like you said, and pronouns is a good example as well. Stating up front whether that person is for or against not safe for work content, even.
Yeah.
So that is good. That is good stuff to know, especially if you don't really know the person you're interacting with. It's a good way to kind of get a glimpse of um, who that person is, and um, gosh, it just really is nice to see all the conversations about consent these days. It's something that a
Yeah.
lot of people just like leave by the wayside, honestly.
Yeah. It's and I think it's like the debate about like whether we should have sex ed in school. At this point, I feel like most kids are like back in my day, I got like the Jesus will smite your penis off if you have premarital sex type, discussion. Um,
Oh, will he now?
but
Let's fucking go then, Jesus. Come
ah,
on, bring it.
let's do this.
I'm counting on it.
Yeah. Um, but like, like you see a lot of kids that are you know, like kids are just smarter nowadays, like more politically engaged. Um, like I've been getting tips for like the whole reason I went the zero waste was because one of my coworkers' kids was talking about uh how she was recycling pens into paint sprayer nozzles and stuff like that. And I was like,
Ah.
so she did that all because of zero waste, not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily because of money or um just to be creative. She was just like, I just want to, make sure, the earth's feeling good. And I was like, wow, I feel horrible. I am 25 and this kid is more considerate than I am. Like, yeah,
No, it's good to see. It's good to see. And,
yeah,
overall, you can say what you will about kids being engaged politically, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, and all the 15-year-old Marxist Leninists and stuff like that want to be super edgy and stuff. Whatever. But I'll say this is that, like, back in my day, kids were not politically engaged. It was not cool to be politically engaged, okay? And I'm just a millennial, right? It wasn't. I was in high school in like the 2000s, 2005 to 2008 or something like that. Like, that's not too long ago. And
yeah.
it was not, it wasn't hip. It wasn't the thing, that people weren't into that shit.
I graduated in 2014 and like if you were politically engaged, you more than likely were a Nazi. Like, and that's
Yeah,
politically engaged, like just spouting, anti-feminist bullshit. And then
right.
like the few kids that were healthily politically engaged had some knowledge. Generally it was like, oh, well, I think we should increase taxes, increase tariffs, therefore maintaining jobs, but also allowing us a little bit more extra money. It's like very bland
Yeah,
takes, like stuff that's like, yeah, I feel like anyone would agree with that. Um, and there's no complexity there. I guess it's more of just getting everyone on your side.
right.
And now it's like, yeah, the woke scolds, tankies, all those kids, like, like I would prefer them to be tankies over Nazis. And I prefer them to be willing to read theory and stuff like that. They just have
Right.
a bit of a doomer mindset is the big bad thing. Um, they're just they feel like the world's gonna end, and maybe it will. I mean, global warming is destroying our planet. But you know, they once they grow up and start to relax and calm down a bit about the urgency of things, they'll probably be outpacing me by miles
Oh
on
yeah.
like philosophy, politics, economics, all that stuff, like just running laps around me. And can't wait for that day. That way
Yeah.
I can just be debating whether or not a certain new car is actually worth the money. And that will be my whole debate channel.
Oh, that would be the day, wouldn't it? To just like
Yeah.
indulge and just focus on whatever you want to do and just do that and totally ignore politics. It sucks having to pay attention to it, Like it's uncomfortable sometimes. hearing some of the stuff that comes out. Like even some of the stuff that I talk about on the show, like is pretty uncomfortable to hear sometimes. Like about the trans woman that got assaulted, or the new anti-trans bills that are passing in Texas. Like from all the shit, and then like even the good stories have like their fucking weight behind them too. It's got like a whole bunch of like hate and transphobia aimed at
Yeah.
everybody. Like even the stories of success are just like mired in all of this negativity, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate and it's hard to escape, and it's just it's so terrible. And I wish that we could just try to put maybe more of a positive light on things, see things from a little bit brighter of perspective. But
It's like I said, like I read a lot of like LGBT romance novels and stuff like that, and like almost all of them
mhm.
have like I've noticed that like the ones that have come out in 2018, 2019, 2020, they tend to be very sweet, nothing really bad. Whereas like the slightly older ones, they usually involve violence, sexual assault, stuff like that. Um, and yeah, like I can't wait for a day where we don't have to pay attention to politics. And politics is two guys arguing about a tax bill, and do they want 24%
Right.
or 25% for a corporate tax? And less about, like I read international news because I'm a Department of Defense employee, kind of, I'm a contractor. So I read like the trans woman in Azerbaijan that was lit on fire. Like it's depressing that I have to know that, to make sure that I'm safe when I do international travels. But, you know, the future's coming, and eventually, um, it won't be an issue. It'll be, you know, the next hot button topic will be, oh, should like the ethics behind milking cows, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Let's.
it's coming. And
I
yeah,
agree.
kids are a lot better than the previous generations. I mean, like,
Hmm.
that's why like I'm 25, so I'm right on the border of Zoomer and Millennial. So I just call myself a Zoomer because like I see so much promise, even in the more hardcore right kids. I can see myself in them because I used to be pretty edgy, and I can tell that like they're posing super hard, and it's only a matter of time before they break that.
Yeah.
And the ones that are like moderate right, they tend to be a lot more understanding. You can talk to them, and generally they're only moderate right in like well, should vaccines be mandated? Like, well, that's a fair question. Like I wish we wouldn't have to, but in the current political climate, we have to. And like having a conversation about that. So I have faith. Zoomer gang, rise up.
Zoomer gang. Yeah. No, I also have faith. Um, Everything that I've seen from the newer generation has been more or less positive. Um, I don't. I don't run into a whole lot of like Zoomer Nazis. That's not something I see a
Yeah.
lot. Maybe from time to time, but I don't know. It's not something that I'm too concerned with. Um, More, I'm excited for the level of what would you call it? Wisdom? Oh, is it? Do you think it's inherited? Do you think it's passed down from parents who are accepting and know this? Do you think that's how these younger generations are getting it, or do you think it's something that is kind of more inherent within the generation itself, as in kind of like a rebellious, as far as like it seems like a lot of millennials are contentious with each other. They tend to be more like extreme in their beliefs for whatever reason. Um, do you think that maybe it's a response to that, or do you think it's more kind of just like going their own way? What do you think?
So personally, I think Alan Watts, in one of his lectures, talked about hereditary love and hereditary empathy. So like every generation will get more empathy. Like, like people talk about like the Greeks and how like they were gay. Well, they weren't gay necessarily in the traditional sense. It was actually a form of dominance over another man. Like they didn't have some beautiful love. It was more. it was less fun. But every generation gets a little bit less barbaric and a little bit less violent and a little bit less if you look at like crime rates, like almost every generation they drop just a little bit. I mean, obviously like 70s and 80s, it kind of goes up because then they're getting recorded more. And but as we're seeing over the next couple of years, I guarantee in like 10 years, we're going to see, maybe a 3% drop in crime. And then the next decade, it'll be another 3% drop. Because I truly believe there is like every generation um, will inherit a little bit of empathy. Maybe it's not all of it, but it's a little bit more than the last generation had. And not to mention, um, like how communities process things together now. We're a lot more interconnected. Um, like back in like 2010, 2014, if I had an issue, I was primarily alone. Like, yeah, I could go on some forums, but it was like, like some weird, um, I don't know, juggalo furry fandom forum, something
Yeah.
like that. So I wasn't going to get the same community to talk to. Whereas now we have um, like I can't like if I have an issue, like there's plenty of resources out there where I can like reach out. People are much more open. It's one of the reasons why I'm open about like my heroin addiction. I mean, like me going through rehab right now, like I was on Not Safe for Work Twitter because they're Not Safe for Work side of Twitter, they always look at every post.
Hmm.
And I talked about going through rehab, or outpatient rehab because, I want people to like destigmatize it a little bit. Or if they have questions like, if I go to rehab, will I get clean rooms? Well, not always, you can talk to, if there's NPs that are going to be running it, talk to the NPs, um, so there's more of a community. And I feel like in the future, unless like something catastrophic happens, the communities will be even more like interwoven and interconnected. Like there's a weird connection between like hardcore mechanics and like alt-right assholes. Um and it sounds weird, but like there's essentially Nazis tend to be like on the fringes of the auto clubs and stuff like that, and they're easy to spot out. But um, you know, now that cars are you know kind of getting easier to work on, and there's a lot more knowledge about it. Those people, like in 2010, I knew there was like three people with the pinwheel sticker on their car, and I was like, okay, those are skinheads. Those are I'm not going near them. Um, Now it's like I go to a car meet and it's like one old asshole who has a Confederate flag, and that's about it. Now it's like um tuners who are like computer geeks who just like it's like the joke of if you see a Honda with a laptop in the passenger seat, don't race it. Like you have people, like it's much more interconnected. And then or even just like back in the day, um like designing vinyls and stuff for cars, like liveries and stuff. Like you would go to someone and pay them. Now it's like there's like I know of four different people that are like visual artists that they like cars from a media perspective, like a medium perspective. Just like, oh, I want to put something on a car. And they don't they're not like busting their knuckles open on replacing a certain valve,
Yeah.
but they're part of the car community.
Yeah, that's cool. I think it is also it's neat that a lot of this is becoming more accessible too, as far as like
Yeah.
printing graphics and stuff like that too. Because like a Cricut now, like can you imagine doing something like that in like the 90s, having that level of means of production? Are you kidding me? You'd fucking blow
Yeah.
up. You would be insane.
Yeah.
That would be the biggest business you could make right there. And like, hmm, yeah. No,
Yeah.
but I
I
like it. The level of technology and becoming more interconnected. Humans are a social creature. And, say what, social media is toxic. That's true. It's bad
yeah.
to spend all your time on social media. But I think it's also a good tool. I think it's a very good
Yeah.
tool if you can use it responsibly. And I think that's a skill that um, maybe Gen Z will learn and be able to pass down to the next generation, hopefully. That's what I'm praying for. That this is as much of a class that's taught as sex education is. And I think we need to like severely amp up our sex education as far as what's taught in schools, because if it's anything like what I was taught, it's way insufficient. Like
Yeah.
significantly, like way you're missing a
Oh
whole
yeah.
lot there.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even like subtle stuff. Like when I was 16, I dated a 30-year-old because, I was gay and like didn't have anyone to talk to. And like there was a lot of red flags that like if I would have had someone to talk to, like been taught about consent and stuff like that,
right.
like I would not have had, that issue. I would not have, been in the situation that I would have. Um, and also I think like um children these days also are getting much more intrapersonal skills. Like they're getting a lot more of an understanding of themselves. Like I have to do like the beauty queen method, which is where like, okay, I'm not very passing right now. I got a big ass chin, massive Adam's apple. My
Mhm.
voice sounds horrible. I can't change any of it. My voice, I can't train because I, had an attempt on my own life that crushed my larynx. So until I get surgery to correct it, I'm kind of stuck with it. So I have to, the Buku method is where you like look in a mirror and you point out like three things that you like, like you go, okay, you wake up and you're like got all messy hair. And, sometimes I look at it like, I'll go, look like, um, I look like I should be in a Susie and the Banshees, music video. I like that. Or, oh, um, my lips are very purple this morning, probably because I slept wrong. And I really like that shade of purple. You know what? I'm gonna take that as a win. Um, or, like, oh, my collarbone is sticking out. I like how my collarbone looks. And I, like, um, I was talking to, I think he's my cousin. I don't know. My family isn't like super tight knit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, think he's like my second cousin. I don't know, something like that. But I was talking to him about like, self confidence. Like growing up and having the confidence to do what you need to do and take care of yourself. And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, like I give myself a little pep talk every morning, and I point out like the stuff I like. And I'm like, I am 25 and just learned that I should be doing that. I should be taking care of myself and boosting my own, self confidence. And this 16-year-old who not the brightest kid, but even he gets it just off the bat, like without being told anything about it. He's just like, like I just do it. It's like
Yeah.
it's it's amazing, and like maybe the generation after Zoomers, maybe they'll be even more self confident and self assured almost, enough to where like social media, like they don't get as bothered, um, by stuff like you look at bigger trans accounts and stuff like that, and it's like, wow, this person's transition looks gorgeous. And like you sometimes fail to realize like, hey, I'm beautiful. Maybe I don't look that specific way and I don't look that conventionally attractive in that way. But you know what? I got beauty. And you know what? Um, I have a base level of beauty. And in the future, maybe I'll look like that. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll be a different flavor of beauty, you know, and instead of like oh, that person's gorgeous. Why can't I look like that? And then wallowing in it, which
Right.
I've I've definitely struggled with that. But like a little bit of introspection. I don't know if that's the right word, but looking inwards and you just kind of piece it together. And
Yeah.
of course, it's also with like community. Like
Mm-hmm.
um, I talk with like a lot of people who go through therapy, and a lot of well, like my friends that are alive now, who have gone through like rehab and stuff like that. Like they tend to give like some of the best advice I've ever heard on the face of the planet. You know, like um, so I have this massive community of people from all over the country. I mean, technically all over the world. Like I know people from Guam and stuff like that that I served with, and like that now that we're so interconnected, like everything, it's easier to find the right answer, the right
Mm-hmm.
um shape for the whole.
Right. Absolutely. Well, one thing I was going to ask you about is speaking of community. I've been thinking about certain communities that exist. Um, and I think there are certain trans communities that are inherently toxic, um, and full of uh, people who are in a cycle of self-loathing. And I
Oh yeah,
think
yeah,
people who are in that cycle try to pull other people into the whirlpool. And I think it's an easy thing to get latched onto, and connected to, because especially with anonymous communities, not pointing anything out in specific, uh, there can be some kind of sense of like wanting to prove oneself and stand out amongst the anonymous and go down in infamy, for example. And so there's always this air of one-upsmanship, as it were. Uh, and that leads to a lot of like really toxic thought when you couple it with let's bring AGP into shit, and let's say all
yeah.
these people don't pass, and let's say passing should be the number one goal of any trans woman. Like, I'm sorry, I thought the acceptance that there was a spectrum of gender meant that there would be people that exist in areas of that spectrum that make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
yeah, it's just something you're going to have to deal with, bucko. I'm sorry about it, but there are going to be people that are comfortable with being trans.
Yeah.
It's just how
No,
it
it's like
goes. Yeah.
the way I see, the TTT community, um, they are like some of the newer Marines that I had to deal with in second meth. So I had, I'll call him Seaback, right? So this Marine who thought he was the most macho, like the most macho, manly guy on the face of the planet, and everyone had to prove their manliness to him. He was constantly doing stuff. He just so happened to be gay too. And he was very toxic about like, his, gayness. So
Mm-hmm.
like this is like near the end of my time in the military. So I was doing like drag. I was doing a lot of like, I wouldn't even call it drag because I wasn't being overly performative. I was just cross dressing essentially,
Right.
but I just didn't have the words to feel, or I didn't want to admit that like, oh, I'm trans. Um, and he's like, well, I never have clown sex, which is a term for when someone cross dresses in gay sex, right? Um, he's like, I never do this, that, and he was super macho. Well, one day, this is when I was like 220 pounds, and I was the champion fighter of second meth, and I was constantly invited to what we called the Marine Olympics,
Mm-hmm.
which was just like it was like events like boxing, doing course runs, a lot of athletic stuff. So I was like the boxer, like I was the one that would knock someone on their like I would cave in someone's skull if I wasn't careful. Anyways, so he gets upset at me because like me and a bunch of other Marines who were straight would go to this gay goth club in Seattle. So we get back to base and we're all drunk. He decides to confront me and he's like, oh, I don't, you know, F slur, like you're making the rest of us look bad. And I look at him and I go, really? I'm the one making us look bad by having fun, you know, being part of the community, enjoying my time on this earth. And he's like, well, you're dressing like that and people won't take me seriously because you look like an asshole. I was like, I have a Purple Heart. I have 4 warfare devices. I have 3 naval accommodation medals, and I have a Medal of Merit. Like, I am a very well decorated sailor. I'm also one of the only corpsmen. So, I was a dedicated corpsman for Rear Admiral Perry when he visited specific ships. So I was like very, very like I still have the letter from him that was like, um, uh, if you go up for IDC, this specific letter can be submitted to the War College to get you into this. Right? I was very well decorated. So he decides wants to throw a punch because I was wearing a dress. And um, well, I was a really good boxer, so I beat his ass. Um, so the next day, he comes in, he's like trying to start stuff, and I was like, listen, I'm hungover. The eggs taste horrible. I do not want any of this coffee. How about you hang out with me for a little bit and we'll talk about things? So at first he was super confrontational, um, pretty much shouting out like AGP level stuff like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, well, you're like trender stuff. Like he even said trender as far as like a gay
Ah.
trender. And I was like, I have I've been with many men. I don't think I'm a trender. Um, and so we go on, keep talking, and eventually he just kind of like, I was giving him like romance novels because that was like the one thing that kept me sane and like kind of made me happy and like feel a little less crappy. And I was like, hey, like if you find like a romance novel that you like tell me, I can get you another book that's nice because
Mm-hmm.
he was also anti-pornography and stuff like that. And on deployment, most people have porn. I was weird and I had romance novels. And so he, starts reading romance novels and he starts, talking to me about those things. He's like, like, oh well, I got beat up as a kid and like, oh, people treat me like shit. And so, like it's like, you are you. Who the fuck are they? They're worthless. Yeah, as far as you're concerned, like the whole Descartes, like as soon as someone's outside of your field of view, they no longer exist.
Yeah.
Like take that. Like you are you. You should be living to whatever makes you happy. It's like for me, yeah, I don't want to pass. I want to make myself feel happy with when I walk past a mirror. Like it's why I still work out a lot. Like yeah, certain dresses don't look good, but other than that, like I feel happy with who I am now. Um,
Yeah.
and TTT can shove it up their ass, um,
Exactly.
because all they're doing is they're like that Marine where they're trying to start a fight because they think that that will cure their problems when really all they need to do is sit down, accept themselves, love themselves, and then just do what they feel is right. There's going to be cringy people in every group, like I can think of a couple of cringy trans people, but does that make them less trans? Should I be bullying them? No. No. Like, why? Like, are they any less than me? No. If we both got cut open, we'd both bleed red. So who gives a shit?
Right. Exactly. Well, and there's a lot of like discourse that goes on, especially in lefty circles about xenogenders and stuff like that. But I'm like, at the end of the
Yeah.
day, just who fucking cares, man? Just chill. It doesn't affect you.
Yeah.
Just like if they want, just let them have their pronouns, even if you don't agree with it. Who cares, right? Like, why
Yeah.
is it such a big deal? It doesn't impact you at all. You can just be respectful, and that's all people are asking you to do is just be respectful, and it's not hard to do.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. And like it's like the attack helicopter book or whatever that was written, like people had a big furor about it. And it's like, well, if they actually read it, it actually wasn't really, making fun of trans people. It was actually a pretty good in-depth analysis of like, you know, how, the military kind of picks what people are and stuff like that. That was kind of like the real story. But
Mm-hmm.
people took the attack helicopter thing is like, oh, well, is attack helicopter a viable gender? Do I care? I don't. I just don't. Like, if they want to do whatever as long as it doesn't harm themselves or others, I do not care.
Yeah.
And even like as far as like the harm themselves, like my ethics behind that are like as long as they're not like pouring gasoline down their throats, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like if they want to wear metal around all day, cool. I don't care. Like it doesn't make me any less of a trans woman. Am I It's like when trans people commit crimes, a lot of people will be like, well, why should I, to respect someone's identity, they need to have respect or whatever, blah blah blah. It's like, why? Do you purposely misgender cis people?
Yeah.
You don't. Oh, you're just trying to let that little bit of transphobia fly. Well, who cares if they committed a crime? As far as I'm concerned, you know, wood chippers are an option for certain people. Um, I obviously don't want the death penalty. It's not
Right.
a
No.
viable option. It's on the there's so many things wrong with it, not just from like a moral standpoint, but just like what happens to further crimes down the road and how criminals behave knowing that they could die. It's
Right.
like a whole big thing. But, like it does that make me less respectable? Like I have commendations from Rear Admiral Perry of the Perry family, one of the oldest running officer family in the United States Navy. Like I have a Purple Heart. I've got all these awards. Am I less respectable because one person committed a crime? I'd hope not.
Yeah. No, and I don't think so either. But I mean, we this is the same kind of discourse that was going on about gay people and lesbians and bisexuals back in as early as the like 80s, 70s and 80s
Yeah.
and 90s, into the 90s and early aughts. People were still using gay as an insult or ribbing people for being gay, and it's still like even to this day it's still the butt of some like poorly written comedy, but it's still the butt of some
Comedy.
jokes, right? Yeah, comedy, right? But it's still the same. It's the people like oh, what's that guy's name? Dennis something.
Dennis
uh
Prager?
no, it's not Dennis Prager. It's is that really bad? Dennis
I don't think I'm
Miller.
lagging.
Dennis
Dennis
Miller.
Miller.
Dennis Miller. Sorry. It should be fixed here shortly. But yeah, Dennis
Okay.
Miller. Really poor comedy. Just overall pretty
Ricky
bad.
Gervais's transphobia.
Yeah. Well, I
It's
mean, yeah, it's
oh,
just like it's the lowest effort you could possibly get, you know. Just low hanging fruit comedy.
yeah. And honestly, it's like I don't know. It's like as far as like respectability politics, it's futile. I mean, like we didn't get gay marriage until 2015 because people were playing respectability politics. 60s, 70s, it was riots and like, okay, they were immediately instituting laws like, okay, well, we won't just put gay people in jail, you know. And I'm not saying riots. Riots, they're not fun. People get hurt, you don't want that type of stuff. But, like if we try to be respectable, if I go out dressed, in my, little leopard print shirt with my cute black capris and my cardigan, like, and say I have already got FFS and I sound perfectly passing and I tell people I'm trans, um, versus like right now where I'm wearing some junk tee that I got off of Etsy, um, you know, if there's a difference between how they treat me, it's because fundamentally they don't actually respect me. Like straight down to who I am as a person. Um, like they're just when I look more respectable, they're going to respect me because they're afraid of how other people will think of themselves. Like they'll think, oh, this person's being rude to that woman, you know. Whereas if I'm more blatantly not passing, then you go, oh, well, you know, just a trans
Right.
person, like that's kind of like the thought going around in their head. Um, and you can't sway them. There is no swaying there. They either are or against. It's the same thing with homophobes. Like at best, you can get homophobes that aren't violent. You can de-escalate them from violence, but fundamentally, they'll always, it's like I had a conversation with someone recently where it was about how to approach transphobic people, and I said that if a transphobe approached me on the road and they're like, "Hey, you're trans, right?" Like, "Hey, I have some questions." I would talk with them. If they're like, "Oh, you are a T-slur, blah blah blah,"
Hmm.
I'm going to spit in their face and keep walking. Like, I'm not going to show them any respect. I They don't
Yeah.
deserve it, flat out.
Right.
And they're like, "Well, you know," I talked to this one 15-year-old, and they admitted that, oh, it's just like they have this personal disgust with trans people, and fundamentally they kind of agreed to not be transphobic. It's like, well, yeah, but that disgust is still there. There's, in 3 years, they'll be a voter. What if they decide that that disgust is just enough
Yeah.
to tip it on a hot button topic? Um, like there is no winning against that. The best thing you can do is like immersion therapy. It's like with racist Marines. Generally what we'll do is um we will essentially like sounds kind of weird, but like we had a racist Marine from Tennessee once, and what we would do was we were playing fuck, what's that one comedy that's hilarious from the 90s? Um we would play like movies that are more centered around people of color,
Hmm.
um, trying to essentially be like these people are people just like you. Or we'd have like um my like my absolute favorite workout partner was named McLeod. He was 6'5", like 250 pounds, I think. And he was very dark skinned, right? Um, if like someone was constantly being racist, we would just it was essentially me and McLeod would you know outpace whoever it was and just mock them and just be like, like, oh, you're racially superior, but here you are getting beaten by a gay man and a person of color. Like, where is this anger coming from? Like, we're people. We come in all shapes and sizes. Your hate isn't worth holding on to, especially considering he is going to save your life one day. Because, sorry, like he's 250 pounds, super lean muscle. He's going to save your life by dragging you away from gunfire. I'm going to save your life. You're going to be bleeding out your leg, and I'm going to put a tourniquet on it. And you know, if I was allowed to have the same hate in my heart, you would be dead. Like, so like, you have to immerse the person in the
Hmm.
community. Like a lot of like de-radicalized transphobes, they tend to be like um people that were trans, detransitioned, then transitioned back, like Kai Shivers. I feel like I just screwed up their name. But like um a lot of retransitioners talk about how like like they were never really in the trans community to start off with, and they had a lot of transphobic friends, and they kind of just stuck with those friends. Once they kind of got abandoned by them and went back to trans people and started hanging out with them, um, their views just completely changed because maybe they went back to, oh, trans people are people, we exist. Um, like staying away from like it's like transphobes. They will skew statistics so bad, like 1350 for racists. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, 1350, it is a number, yeah, but why is it that people of color make up roughly like 30% of all the people going to court, but make up 50% of the convictions? Why is that? Do you think there could be a bias there? Why is it that in studies they prove that almost always, if a person has a foreign last name or is a person of color when they go to trial, they're more than likely to be found guilty, even if there's very little evidence, you know? And, like you're not painting the whole picture just by saying two numbers. Same thing with trans statistics. People always go, well, there's 125 trans people in prison and 50% of them are predators, right? Well, that's based on really faulty data. First off, it's based off of um, a self-assessment, I think. not a
Mhm.
self-assessment, a survey, that's the word, um, where they essentially went through UK prisons and asked people, hey, are you trans? And would you like to change your pronouns? Well, if you've read any like analysis of criminals, predators tend to be a lot more manipulative if they think that there will be any gain. It's just kind of like a common trait amongst them. So if they think that by saying yes to being trans, they might be treated better, they'll take it. So, and even at that, 125 trans people out of the entirety of the UK. The UK is roughly 350,000 trans people estimated, of course, because, you know, that makes it 0.0001% of all trans people commit any crime. And that's based off of a self-assessment or self-survey. Um, that is pretty bad. Like that's pretty bad for like anyone arguing that trans people are violent. In the US, it's something like 1/1 millionth of a percent or something like that of trans people committing crime. And almost always trans people going to jail, generally if it's for a sex crime, it's public indecency, generally because they were a prostitute. Cops will nab anyone that's a prostitute, you know, prostitute, sex worker, a hooker,
Yeah.
whatever. I use the word prostitute because that's what I was most comfortable with. Um, and you'll be considered a registered sex offender if they find you walking while trans. And there's still states that still have walking while trans laws because they count us as sex workers. If you have a condom, that can get you put on the sex offenders registry if you're trans, not if you're cis, but if you're trans. So in America, we make up such a tiny, 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 tiny percentile of all criminals. We overall commit crimes at such a tiny rate. In fact, transphobes have to use international examples for anything that they don't like,
Yeah.
and generally it's decades old.
Mhm.
Like they use Karen White. Karen White, it was like what 2013. It's
Yeah.
almost been a decade, and they have yet to find another example. And also, not even that, they have to use really faulty data because they cannot construe us. They if they actually hung out with us and found out that most of us are scared shitless by cops, they would, kind of start to realize like, hey, most of us can't risk going to prison with
Yeah.
10%, like a guaranteed 10% that if you're in a UK prison and you're trans, you will be sexually assaulted. If you're in a US prison, it's something like 25% of a chance that you will be sexually assaulted in your first year. The second year, it's about 50%. So we don't want to go to prison. We don't like, I don't think anyone wants to go to prison, but like trans people, especially, there's such a risk, you know? Um, but yeah, as far as like us being in women's prison, the 7 sexual assaults that were committed by trans people, it is by all trans people. There have only been, it was from only certain prisons, and the overall number of trans women was like 12, I think, and only one, and one of them was Karen White. Um, the rest of them, it was more than likely trans men committing the or perpetrating sexual assault. Um, which is pretty obvious because like when a trans woman or if a trans woman were to commit sexual assault or commit a crime in prison, we'd be all over the news.
Mhm.
Like shit, Chris Chan, like there was like faulty, like the whole story is like kind of sketchy. Like, oh, there's this phone call where Chris Chan admits that she was sexually abusing her mother. But if you listen to her voice, it's very, very weird sounding. Um, like still disgusting, and I hope that justice is brought. But, like that was like what, a whole week on Twitter of
Yeah.
every, streamer talking about it. We can't fucking piss without it being national news.
Yeah.
It's like we're the most it's like I don't know, we're the most poorly painted group.
Yeah.
Like
Well, right
people
now.
want to lather us with
Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's not another target. Gay people are more accepted, thereby bisexuals and lesbians really never really had that much to worry about in the grand scheme of like societal pressures as far as gay men had, in my opinion.
yeah.
But bisexuals, I think, even had it worse. It didn't matter if you were a man or a woman bisexual or any kind of in between there. If you were bisexual, that took precedence. They were like, well, you just can't decide. You just got to pick one or the other. Like, and you would
Yeah.
get that from like gay people. Gay people would do
Yeah.
that. That's absurd. And then bisexuals, you get transphobic bisexuals.
How? Yeah.
I don't get it.
Like the genital preference debate, it's like, okay, like there's things to be said, there like like how far, like what do we consider? Honestly, I ultimately think it's person to person, like and how they react, like if I if I could just flip a switch and I automatically had a fully working uterus and vagina, and what I did, I was born as I was, but I just flipped a switch and automatically had the perfect body. Um, and a straight guy was like, "No, I won't have sex with you," even though like I would be like their perfect type or something, like let's say perfect conditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's transphobia, blatantly. The super buys, it's like, what is your issue? Like, like you don't even have an excuse. I think it also goes back to like the uh so you said like social pressure. I would say it's more like social punishment. So
Mm.
like being openly gay in society, even still now, like you'll still get harassed. You'll um like there's still like a lot of contention. Like if people see two gay men kissing on a street, um, or even being close, like I went to Idaho with my girlfriend for the Beaverhead 50K. We had people looking at us weird. I had just plain black hair. It was a little long, but it wasn't as long as it is now. She has very plain brown straight hair. It's a little bit long. It's not too long. And we were just sitting there taking pictures together with all the people finishing the 50K and 100K. And we weren't kissing. We weren't holding hands. I think at best I bumped her hip with my hip, and that was it. But we still had like people kind of giving us weird glares. Um, so yes, lesbians get less of a social punishment, like people because they're very sexualized. So they're not going to get disgusting looks from people in public, but they're more likely to be sexually objectified, in
Yeah.
media and stuff like that. And, the punishment's more different.
Yeah.
And it's more of like a psychological punishment than like a blatant physical punishment, like um, someone kicking my ass because I was holding hands with another boy.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I guess, but and then with bi people, I really understand that pain because um, it's like that would suck to be hated by both sides. It's just like I don't know, like I'm pansexual a little bit. Like I, it's pretty much mainly guys, except for like my current girlfriend is like the first person I've ever, like first woman I've like really, been in
Mm-hmm.
love with and stuff like that. Um, so I consider myself pansexual. But like even when I say I'm pansexual, I still get like within like at gay bars and stuff like that. Like some gay guys will cringe and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, you're so woke, and it's like, no, I just have the right word for what I am.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to say like 99% gay, or like or the complexity of being trans,
Right.
like that whole throws a whole new wrench into it. Like, um, like most people aren't going to discuss the philosophical ramifications of if I top or if I bottom, which is actually gay. Is it gay when I bottom? Maybe it's not, When I top, you would say probably, sure. But, like, and then it's complex, like,
Right.
and then it's like the same discussion about like once someone has bottom surgery, if they have sex, like say I get bottom surgery and I have sex with a man, am I a homosexual? Well, I mean, sure, my chromosomes match up, but I think having sex, penis and vagina, is probably one of the least gay things,
Yeah.
in the history of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but humanity is complex. We are
Sure.
monkeys with too many folds in our brains. Truly,
Yeah. Far too many folds. Well, speaking of folds, I think we've been on. I've taken up a little bit too much of your time tonight. I'm sorry to have kind of just
Oh no,
like
it's been fun.
consumed your entire schedule. But yeah, I had a good time. Thank you for
Yeah,
for
it's been
joining
great.
us tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks for having me.
of course. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to plug? Any projects or anything you working on?
Um, I think just Twitter because I'll probably be starting up my Twitch account back up again soon just because it looks like the hate rates are at least dying down.
Yeah.
And the temperatures are starting to go down. Um, Dahlia underscore Doom, common spelling DAHLIA_DOOM. If you find me on Twitter, uh, Twitch, same username, pretty much same username for everything, even Steam. Um, I'm always down to talk if um my stream will be all about self-care and probably a lot of that because I'm finishing up rehab this week. And yeah, if anyone needs to talk, like I mean like anyone, um, feel free to reach out. I'm not as crazy as I seem today, usually.
You just had a lot of caffeine and came up from a nap really quick. You're good. You're good.
Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah, I'm good.
You're good.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you. You're welcome on anytime, of course. I do want to thank you again. Thank you all for coming out and take care. Yeah. See you later. Bye bye.
See ya. Bye.